What's up, team? Michael here, and in this video I'm going to recap a little bit the Jacob Heppner versus Josh Bridges fight. Now, I actually ran a poll on YouTube a few days ago, and quite a bit of you actually didn't watch the fight, and some of you actually didn't even know there was a fight. So for those of you who didn't even know there was a fight between Jacob Heppner and Josh Bridges, I'm going to give a little bit of a context and backstory on how it all came to be. And then I'm going to go over the fight, give my thoughts on it, and then we're going to see where Josh Bridges potentially wants to do a rematch. Okay, so for those of you who didn't even know there was a fight between Jacob Heppner and Josh Bridges, well, first of all, if you don't know who those two athletes are, they're two main CrossFit athletes that competed at a high level at the CrossFit Games. Jacob Heppner has competed, I think 6 years at this point, and Josh Bridges around the same time. He retired a few years ago, though. Jacob Heppner just retired this year. Anyway, this fight was between those two, Jacob Heppner and Josh Bridges, and it all came to be, it literally all started back in 2016 when Eddie Hall, a world's strongest man, actually broke the 500 kilogram deadlift record. Now you might be wondering, what does he have to do with it? He's not really in the CrossFit space. Well, what happened is he broke the 500 kilogram record on the deadlift, the world record, and then shortly after, not shortly after, I guess it was a few years, Hafthor Bjornsson, I'm not sure if that's how you say his name, I'm just going to call him Thor, that's like his nickname. Anyway, in 2020, Thor broke that deadlift record by 1 kilogram, and Eddie Hall was a little suspicious of how the record was broken. You can go back and watch the video, but Eddie Hall was really suspicious on how the deadlift record was broken by Thor. And as things escalated, him and Thor decided they were going to settle it in the ring. They were going to have a boxing match. And then around the same time that Thor and Eddie were like saying they're going to box each other, Josh Bridges and Dave Castro on Instagram were exchanging words back and forth, and one of them said, I think it was Josh Bridges, said like he'll fight Dave Castro, and Dave Castro's like, sure, if Josh wants to fight, I'll fight Josh Bridges. Anyway, as those things escalated and Josh Bridges and Dave Castro, like as those things escalated, Dave Castro actually backed out of the fight. They were getting ready, they were actually planning it, and then Dave Castro decided to back out of the fight. And Josh Bridges wanted to fight someone else, like just for the fun of it, as the undercard for the Eddie Hall versus Thor fight. So the undercard is basically some fights leading up to the main event, which would be the Eddie Hall versus Thor fight. And that's where Jacob Heppner accepted the fight with Josh Bridges. There wasn't really no reason to fight other than it was a challenge between Jacob Heppner and Josh Bridges, and that fight just happened the other day. Now, fun fact, if you were looking forward to the Eddie Hall versus Thor fight like I was, oh, there's a truck going back there. If you were looking forward to the Eddie Hall versus Thor fight like I was, you were a little disappointed because last minute Eddie Hall ripped his bicep tendon, I think it was. So their fight is postponed. Thor actually fought someone, I forget his name exactly, but his last name was Lorat, and he absolutely demolished him, got a KO in the first round, which is a knockout in the first round. But anyway, here are my thoughts on the Josh Bridges versus Heppner fight. I was really looking forward to it. These are two CrossFit athletes that I'm a big fan of. I've even had Jacob Heppner on one of my podcasts. I'm a huge fan of Jacob Heppner and Josh Bridges. So it's going to be really cool to see them go against each other in the ring. I've been following their training for like the past 6 months. It's been really cool to watch. One thing I was really hoping to see in the fight was a knockout. But unfortunately, as the fight progressed, nobody got a knockout. As the fight was going on, it kind of seemed like Jacob Heppner was the more aggressive opponent. Josh Bridges kind of held back. He threw some really good punches, don't get me wrong, but it felt like he held back. There were even a few times where it looked like Josh Bridges turned around and actually ran away from Heppner a little bit. But all in all, the fight was really fun to watch, and they paced it really well. They kind of both came out at a pretty good speed, not too hot. But as the fight progressed, it looked like their energy was pretty much the same throughout all the rounds, which was 6 rounds. And while I did say that Jacob Heppner was the more aggressive one, Josh Bridges definitely looked like he was the most athletic boxer of both of them. I mean, they've only been training for like 6 months for boxing, but it looked like Josh Bridges was the most athletic of the two. Jacob Heppner was also bigger than Josh Bridges, so that when you have two guys who are very new to boxing and their skill isn't there yet, or isn't as far as it could be, that size is going to really play an impact. But shortly after the fight, on Instagram, Josh Bridges did a post. He said something like, "Damn, what a ride, maybe we run it back." And I would really like to see another fight. I mean, if they train for another 6 months, we might get a knockout. But I can see definitely why Josh Bridges wants to run it back. It really looked like Jacob Heppner was the most aggressive of the two. But yeah, let me know what you thought of the fight, and if you want to see them do a rematch. That's pretty much my thoughts on the fight, and I'd love to see what you guys think. But anyways, like always, train hard, team, and I'll see you in the next one.